Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Night Nurse podcast. How we doing, night owls? I am doing just dandy on this lovely Monday morning at just about 2 a.m. As you can see, I have a brand new logo going on here, brought to you by my wonderful boyfriend, who made this for me. Thanks, babe. You're wonderful. So yeah, coming back at you for another exciting nighttime podcast. The last one was very therapeutic for me, so I guess I decided I'll do another one. Why not? We'll do them until I have nothing else to talk about, which is probably going to be never, because I probably could talk for a long ass time. So yeah, I brought up a couple fun topics. Thought up a couple fun topics to babble on about for a little while. Oops, sorry. Also, I have a movie going on in the background, muted, just because my ADD kicks in and sometimes I just need to stare at something moving. So if I go quiet for a second, I'm probably just zoning out. It's all good. I'm all good. I'll come back to you. So yeah, welcome back. Whenever I do these, I'm going to try not to be like the typical YouTubers who are hey guys, welcome back to my channel, thanks for stopping by, blah blah blah, which I kind of just did, but I'm going to try not to, because it literally drives me crazy, watching literally any YouTube vlogger, blogger, blah, 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 whoever. Literally hearing that every single time I open up a video drives me absolutely insane. So I'm going to try not to do that. No promises, but I'm going to try. Maybe it's just human nature to do that. Anyways, so yeah. Hope you guys are caffeinated for this exciting nighttime experience. I just drank myself a nice energy drink, so hopefully I will not fall asleep during this. No promises. If you hear me snoring, just you don't have to watch anymore, I promise. Thank you to the exciting, I think it was 18 viewers that I got last time. Yeah, 18 whole views. 18 of you sat through me just blabbering on. So you probably watched it, for the I don't know how long minimum you have to watch it to for me to get a view. It's probably a minute or something, and people probably watch it for a minute and it counted as view. So thanks for bearing with me for that minute, because I can really talk, huh? Anyways, so the first topic I wrote down was it sort of stems from a recent experience I had, and it was actually this past day that I went to work. So the day, so my last podcast I did obviously I don't even know, whatever, that morning, that early morning, and then I went to bed later and I woke up and I went to work that night. And so that night I got to work, and one of my two patients was my age, almost exactly. And he had this big accident. It was really sad, but he was fine. He was healthy, he was fine. It was just a sad situation, which I can't really talk about because obviously it's a breach of HIPAA. But oh, there's a plane going by. Sorry if you can hear that. Hold for plane. Come on, Mr. Plane. Sorry, guys. I live in the whatchamacallit of an airfield. What do you even call that? Planes fly over here all the time because there's an airport nearby. Whatever you call it. We live in the trackway. I don't know. Don't listen to me. I'm fine. I need some more coffee. Anyways, so So yeah, my patient was my age. It was kind of like a sad story, all this stuff. But I just wanted to bring up how weird it is to have a patient who is very close to your age or younger than you. Um, and maybe that's just because I'm younger. Maybe like once I get older, my patients get older, like maybe it'll be a little bit easier, but it is like extremely weird to have someone my age as a patient, because like you don't really know how to, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just me. Obviously, I'm like, I don't want to generalize because obviously, like, every single person is not like me. But it's just a very strange thing to, like, go in there and, like, be taking care of someone who, like, literally could be you. And this was a freak accident. This guy was completely healthy, otherwise, got into this big accident, had to come and see us, had a bunch of surgeries, all this stuff. So the fact that, like, this could happen to me, but I don't know. It's just weird, and especially like he had like this spot near his groin that I had to check, and it was like so awkward because I was like, "Hey, like sorry, I have to look at this." And it wasn't something that like I could sort of like delegate to someone else. It was something that I had to look at because he had a nerve block in one of his, I don't know, his veins, his arteries. I don't know where the heck he put that. I guess it's in his nerve. Anyways, I don't know. Good job, Sam. You don't know what the heck you're talking about. Um, but so like having to check like the catheter site of the epidural of the nerve block. I was like, sorry, I kind of have to look at where this is going in, and it's like right, like I'm like trying to make sure everything's covered and like just look at that site, but then I couldn't find the stupid like clave to the catheter to like, which is what I was actually looking for, and so I had to like dig under his, gosh, it was just so awkward. And I'm like, and then the other thing that drives me crazy is his I don't know if they were like his uncles or something like that, but the uncles were in there, and I had like gone in because one of his IVs was beeping or something, and I walk in and like the uncles are like, "Oh, you're right, the nurses are really pretty," and I'm like, I did not spend exuberant amounts of money and spend 4 years of my life to literally be objectified by you damn people. Just annoys me. Anyways, that was like a side tangent. Anyway, regardless, it's very weird having patients your own age or younger. I've had like 18-year-olds, like 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, and it's strange. And then that brings me kind of to this next point, that it's very strange to tell people what to do, I guess. Like, it just, and it goes with, like, it's strange to tell your patient what to do, and, like, obviously you're not like, oh, like, you have to do this, you have to do that, but it's like, oh, like, I have a certain set of tasks that I need to complete, and, like, this is what you need to do for me to complete them. And it's dependent on your health. So that's a little bit easier to tell someone what to do, because you're like, this is like your health and your care that's on the line. So like, if you don't do it, it's a problem. But when it comes to like family members, I think, it gets kind of awkward because you have, like, moms, especially for these like younger patients, you have like the moms who are like, I'm not leaving my kid's bedside, like it's not happening, you can't make me. And obviously we have certain rules in the ICU where like people can stay overnight in the room, but that's like pretty strict circumstances. Like the patient basically has to be like dying for that to happen, like actively dying, and like we think it's going to happen pretty soon, so we let them stay overnight so they can be with the person. But if we have a relatively stable person who really is just there for like observation or something like that, or if it's just like, we're doing the same care, we're not changing anything, the person can stay on the floor, but we have like a family lounge that they stay in, and they can't really be in the room all night. They can come in and out like every once in a while, but they can't stay there forever. So, and here's the thing, if we let everybody break the rules, we wouldn't freaking have rules. So I'm sorry, lady, I don't care how much you love your son, like, we have rules, and we're not gonna have you stay in the room. Anyway, so, and then we also have the rule that, there's only 3 visitors in the room at a time. And we strictly enforce that just because, like, there's so much equipment, so much to do that, like, in the room, and the ICU rooms are much bigger than, like, floor rooms, at least in my hospital. But at the same time, they're still not big enough to have, like, an entire family hanging out, So we have those rules in place for a reason. And so I feel as though I am not the person to, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess, like, I got the blue uniform on, so it makes it a little bit easier, but it's hard for me to tell those type of people what to do, because I'm like, I literally feel as though they're gonna take one look at me and be like, really, you're the one giving me directions. So actually this past time, with this young patient that I had, this patient who was a similar age to me, had like 5 people in the room, and like I didn't realize that they like snuck in, and we have you have to beep in to get onto the unit, but like sometimes people can sneak in if someone with like a badge like badges in, maybe they can like sneak in behind them and get through the door. So somehow they snuck in, and there was like 5 people in there, and like I was in the med room, so I come out, and the one of the CNAs, we call them PCAs, one of the PCAs told me like, oh, there are 5 people in the room. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna stress out. I don't want to go like kick them out because they're all like adults, and I guess I'm an adult, but like, I don't feel like an adult. And again, they're gonna take one look at me and be like, yeah, right, like, you can't tell us what to do. Anyways, but ooh, that was my hip. So the PAA, which is like the unit secretary, she's the telemetry person, she answers the phone, she does a ton of stuff. She's literally fantastic. I'm like, oh my god, can you please just go tell them, because they're not going to listen to me, they'll listen to you more, and like, can you please go do that? So she's like, okay, fine. So she goes and like tells them and yells at them, and it's like totally fine. And maybe it's just all inside my head, like I'm sure they would actually listen to me because, I'm the nurse, and like I actually have some sort of authority, even though I don't think I do. But anyways, that's my little rant about feeling like I can't tell people what to do, even though I literally went to 4 years of school so I'd be able to tell people what to do. Anyway, so that's my 2 cents on authority and the fact that I feel like I have none. Yeah, so my next topic this is also kind of a rant, and like obviously I'm not going to go into like a huge amount of things about this, but it's kind of like what TV gets wrong about the medical fields, and I'm not going to go into like medical dramas because I actually don't, oh my gosh, I don't watch a lot of medical shows. I watched Grey's Anatomy when I was younger with my mom, but like kind of just like died out for me. Also, the issue with Grey's Anatomy shows the doctors like doing so much stuff, and that's a straight up lie. Like I will say in the ICU they do a lot more procedural wise, I feel like at the bedside, which could be construed as like doing a lot. Well, I mean, like it still is a lot, and they do, like, I'm not trying to like hate on doctors, because like the doctors I work with are great for the most part. But like in Grey's Anatomy, when they show the doctors like just like sitting vigil at the bedside of a patient, and like there's a nurse nowhere in sight, like I call bullshit on that. That's BS. Anyways, so that's my one medical drama I guess I'll comment on. But like my other like little things, and there's one that stands out to me, and I am not hating on this TV show because I love it. I was watching True Blood, and there's this part, and I honestly couldn't tell you what season it was in. They all kind of blur together because I binge watched it. But there's this one part, and I mean, obviously, if you don't know the show, it's about vampires, and the main characters, Sookie and Bill. Bill is the vampire and Sookie's the human, and Bill ends up like basically almost like killing Sookie by like drinking her blood, and like kind of by accident. That's a long story, but they bring her to the hospital, and they're like, oh, she needs a blood transfusion, like blah blah blah, and so they start giving her a blood transfusion, and they're putting it through an IV in her hand. And just, man, okay. So my first issue with that, like, I mean, obviously there are some circumstances where like that could be a thing, like totally. But most of the time you use a pretty large bore needle and you put it in a larger vein to give blood, because the speed at which you have to give the blood for it to be effective, like, would most likely like blow a vein if you had it in your hand. So again, like, I'm not trying to say that that's like every single time. There are obviously some outliers and everything, but like, honestly, here's the other thing. If she was completely drained of blood, she would be on massive transfusion protocol, which means that they would be throwing blood in her like nobody's business, which would also mean that she would probably need like a cordis or something, and a cordis is basically like a giant bore needle in like a giant ass, like the biggest honkin' blood vessel that you can find. So that was my one thing, and I watched it and I just got like so annoyed. And the other issue is I think my other, and again, I don't know if this is like my hospital specific, I wouldn't think so, but like there's like a certain type of tubing that you have to use for blood, and like they literally just have like a straight tubing for giving this blood, and I'm like, you shouldn't do that. You should use one with a filter, because like, I don't know the fucking reason behind that. I don't know, but anyways, I feel as though they, yeah. And also, I'm pretty sure no one except people with like a medical background would see it and understand that, really, because, you know, like most people just see people getting blood and like they're like, yeah, whatever, okay. But yeah, that kind of annoyed me. And then my other favorite is like when on shows people are like intubated, they have like the tube down their throat that's connected to the vent that's helping them breathe and everything. It's like so obvious that the tube is just like sitting inside their mouth, and it just like looks ridiculous, and they have like basically the whole rest of the tube like outside the person's mouth. It's just so weird. I'm like, can we make that look like at least a little bit more realistic? Because I don't know, it just looks a little ridiculous. What else? I feel like there are other examples, but just like those little things, and for the most part, only people with medical training and who like see this every day would probably pick up on these things, but I don't know. I feel like they could do a little better, at least for the nurses and doctors who are watching this. Anyways, yeah, so that's my rant on that. Next rant. So at night, as a night shifter, I feel like you have a lot of like heart-to-heart conversations. So maybe this just isn't night shift. Maybe it's, like all healthcare people, but you talk a lot about like if you believe in the afterlife and if you believe that there's something that happens like after you die. And speaking from my personal beliefs, I mean, I was raised Catholic. I'm not really a practicing Catholic anymore. I don't go to church. I don't like read the Bible or whatever. And I don't necessarily believe in like heaven and hell. Like that's just kind of silly. But I feel like a lot of the time people who work actively in places that you see people die, I think it's very easy for us to deal with it if we think that there's something after death, because like it's hard to think that you're watching this person like suffer and go through all of this and then you just think that they're like, oh, like there's nothing else, they just die and like that's it. And I think to maybe like cope with the fact that we're watching life happen in front of us, life and death happen in front of us, we just have to believe that there's something bigger and better after we pass on. So that's kind of my view on that, and I think it makes me feel a little bit better about what I do in terms of helping families through things and helping patients pass on and all that stuff. Working in the ICU, we do a lot of terminal extubations, which is basically like someone is on the ventilator. Basically, it's completely breathing for them. We have them on a lot of meds. There's really, we're basically keeping them alive with everything we've got. We're pumping them full of every drug we can find. We have them on maximum ventilator settings, like all this stuff, And we have a serious talk with either the family or the healthcare representative or whoever it is. And we're basically like, here's the thing. They will probably never be able to not be on this medication. And life is not sustainable on this medication for, people's lives. Like you can't have people on, pressor drips for the rest of their lives. Like it's not healthy. I mean, it keeps you alive, but it's not healthy. And normally people who are healthy enough to get better with the pressors and be able to come off the pressors, like, yeah, that's great. But people who really can't, like, that's not, you can't live with that forever. So, so we have to have hard talks with families and say, like, here's the thing. We can keep them on these pressors until even they can't do anything to save the person and basically let them suffer until that happens. Or we can take the breathing tube out, we can medicate them with, everything in our arsenal and make it a very painless, passing and let them pass on their own, because, it's either do that or just wait for the inevitable, and it might take days, weeks, hours, months, and they'll be in the hospital that whole time. Like, so, it's just, so anyways, so we deal with a lot of terminal extubations, and I think that it just makes it easier for us to think that we are sending them to somewhere better, and or somewhere different, or just somewhere, because thinking that we're just ending them forever is too hard to fathom. So that got kind of depressing. um, so I'm gonna put some humor in it. Ghosts. That's my. So I have this like little list just because I can like get off on tangents and I want to like stay kind of on topic. So my next bullet point just says ghosts with a question mark. So ghosts. Um, yeah, I totally freaking believe in ghosts. Like, hell yeah, there are ghosts out there. Probably like it's probably like the first step in after you die. Like you become a ghost and like hang out for a little while. Um, I mean, I honestly believe that like, you know, there's like body and soul, and the soul probably like lives on for a little while or something, and maybe chills out like in the land of the living, and I don't know, something like that. But yeah, ghosts. Like I totally believe in ghosts. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh, so kind of on topic, but a little bit off topic. Um, I read so a long time ago. I read the Five People You Meet in Heaven, and it's a great book. Like pretty well written. Like it's short and sweet and to the point, and it talks a lot about the afterlife and what you go through to get to heaven and everything and blah blah blah. And it was a really good book. So then like Mitch Albom, the guy who wrote that, took like freaking 20 ass years to write a new one. And it's called The Next Person You Meet in Heaven. And I was like, oh, like, I hadn't even read about it or anything like that, but I was like, you know what, let me read it because I enjoyed the first one, so I'll read the second one. And the second one is actually, the main character is a nurse, of course, and she ends up dying and everything, and she goes through the afterlife, and I just think it was really good. And if you guys are into that kind of thing, go ahead and read it. It's a good time. I also got a new book called Proof of Heaven, and it's by I guess it's kind of like a memoir, it's not an autobiography because that's like someone's whole life. So I think it's like a memoir sort of thing. It's written by a real life neurosurgeon who something happened. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far in the book. Somehow he died and came back to life. I don't know if like he was going into surgery or he might have had like a tumor or something. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far. But he dies and comes back to life, and it's his take on his journey to the afterlife, quote afterlife. The Five People You Meet in Heaven and The Next Person You Meet in Heaven are both like fiction, whatever. But this one is a quote a true life story, and this guy's like accounts of like going to heaven and everything like that. So yeah, I'm not too far into it. It's written very much like a doctor would talk, which if you have not dealt with doctors before, then you might not understand. But if you've dealt with doctors before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the whole book is written like you were talking to a doctor. But it's pretty good so far. It's very interesting. So those are the books I'm reading, because, my life isn't depressing enough, and, I can't get away from work, apparently. So yeah, that's that. Next topic. So I have written down, things you learn once you actually become a nurse, because let me tell you, nursing school is nothing like what being a real nurse is. Like, absolutely nothing. Obviously you learn a lot of information during nursing school, and I know that a lot of nursing schools are different. My nursing school, we started clinicals sophomore sophomore year, I think. And, like, the first year we did, like, anatomy and physiology. We took, like, our first nursing class in our second semester. It was, like, fundamentals of nursing. And then we got into, like, a lot more nursing stuff. We did, like, pharmacology, pathophysiology, all that fun stuff, health assessment, like, that kind of stuff. And that's when we started sophomore year, our clinicals. And clinicals literally were just, like, I feel like for a lot of them, we were just sort of, like, hanging around, and we would get assigned, like, one patient, and then we would go assess them, and, like, that would be it, and, like, we had nothing else to do. And, like, some PCAs would, like, let us, like, you know, do stuff with the patient, like, go in and, like, take care of the patients and, like, do a bed bath or change someone or something like that. Some of the nurses were a little bit better about letting us do stuff and whatnot. I will say my first ever experience giving a shot, and I've gotten better. I'm going to preface this story with I've gotten so much better. I was so nervous. Like, I was shaking, and, like, she had told me, like, we're going to do meds, and I'm going to have you give a shot. And this was my preceptor, and she was the most amazing instructor. Like, she was so great and so helpful and, like, supportive, and she was fantastic. And she was my first ever nursing preceptor, and she was so sweet. And so she's like, we're gonna do meds, there's gonna be a shot in there, and, like, I know you've practiced this on the dummies in the sim lab and all that stuff, you know, you're gonna do it on a real person. I was like, oh my god. And so I basically, like, had, like, a straight up panic attack, because, like, that's what you do in these situations. And so I go in there, and it was a Lovenox shot, so it was, like, a sub-Q, like, pinch the belly fat, like, go straight in, inject, and then pull straight out. And I go to give this shot, and I'm shaking so hard, and I put the needle in, and then I don't even know how it happened, but I, like, dropped it, but it was still in the person's belly, so it was, like, hanging out of their stomach. Oh my god, I'm just, like, remembering this, and it's, like, the worst story ever. Anyways, and this guy was, like, totally out of it, so he didn't really know, like, what was going on. But, like, I start freaking out. I'm, like, screaming, and then my preceptor is standing there. She's like, okay, like, it's all good, just, like, pick it back up and, like, push the plunger and then take it out, and, like, we're all done. It's all good. And so I did that. I picked it back up, I pushed the plunger, I take it out. I'm like, and she's just sort of standing there, like, quietly, and she's like, okay, like, there's room for improvement. And I'm like, oh my god. And I went home, like, completely mortified that day. So anyways, I've gotten much better at it. I actually got to the point where we did, like, a flu shot clinic, and people were like, oh, I didn't even feel you giving me that shot. I'm like, you're welcome. So you know, I was most improved at nursing school, I guess. So, yeah. So, anyways, nursing school is completely different from actual nursing. The things that really, things that I really needed to learn once I became a nurse, the big one is, like, talking to doctors, because, like, you need a very thick skin. And I think where I started out in cardiology, I started out on the floor, and I think starting there, I don't want to be mean again, but cardiologists are, like, some of the meanest freaking doctors. Like, they're so mean and, like, so pushy and so stoic and whatever, but it helped me grow a very tough skin and learn how to talk to them and learn how to get what I needed out of them. And it's a lot easier being in the ICU now because they do take your word much more, and they trust you a little bit more, I think. But talking to doctors is like one of the hardest things I had to learn, and not taking things personally, I think, too, because a lot of the time, like, the things they say, like, you get your feelings hurt, like, a lot. But, like, standing your ground and, like, this is how you have to, like, think about it. Like, you are with your patients your whole shift. The entire shift, you are with your patients. And you're the one that sees them. You're the one that knows them. You know, sometimes the doctors can be right. You can say, like, oh, I think they should do this. And they're like, like, maybe not. You know, but I think we should do this. Like, that's totally fine. But, you know, when you get some doctors who are like, oh my God, that's like the worst suggestion. It's so dumb. Well, what are you talking about? Like, that gets a little ridiculous. But just stand your ground and understand that you know your patient more than a doctor who's never seen them. And, you know, like, trust in your instinct, because here's the thing, like, if you have the instinct that something's wrong, better safe than freaking sorry, people. Like, if I think something's wrong with my patient and you know, we do whatever and we find out nothing's wrong, then, like, great, we're all good. But if you think something's wrong and don't say anything, and then something 10 times worse happens, like, that, you know, it doesn't matter about you, like, that patient's freaking screwed. So that's just something, you know, and a lot of doctors are different. And there was this one doctor who, he was so nice, and he was so handsome too. Sorry, Curtis, I love you. But he already knows. I've actually told him several times that I love this doctor. And he, like, there was this one night where I was just paging him about, like, so many different patients, and, like, this is going wrong and that's going wrong. And this was when I was still in cardiology, and it was like a patient who was post cardiac cath, and he kept bleeding from his groin site, like, kept going and would not stop. And so I'm there, I'm, like, holding pressure. I'm having people, like, send messages for me because my hands are busy holding pressure on this guy's hematoma. Like, this guy's screaming in pain, like, all this crazy stuff. And I'm, like, messaging this guy. I'm like, what the heck should I do? Like, I feel like, you know, the cath lab doctor needs to come up and, like, put a stitch in this or something, because, like, it will not stop bleeding. And this doctor, like, instead of just, like, messaging me back what to do, he, like, comes up to the bedside, like, comes and talks to me, like, is trying to get an understanding. And then he's like, here, like, let me give your arm a break. And he starts holding pressure on the guy. I'm like, that is, like, literally the best thing that you could have done for me. You know, so, you know, I'm not trying to trash doctors. A lot of them are very helpful, and, you know, do what you need them to do and everything. So that's one of the big things that I had to learn. I had to get a lot more confident talking with them, and bringing myself back to having to tell people what to do. Like, I could probably tell a doctor what to do now, but still family members, like, that still terrifies me. Another thing that is different between school and real life nursing, obviously you have a dress code, and you do need to follow the dress code pretty well. Like, have to wear the blue scrubs. You know, you can't be wearing, like, sweatshirts over it. I know, like, some places, my friend works at Duke in she did work at Duke in North Carolina, and they had, like, they could wear, like, Duke t-shirts instead of, like, a scrub shirt, or they could, like, wear Duke sweatshirts or something like that. So I know some places can do that, but at my place, like, you can only wear, like, the blue scrubs, blue sweatshirts. At night, and in the ICU, it's a little bit more lax. Like, we can wear, we have, like, Hartford Hospital, like, black, like, fleece jackets, which technically are, like, illegal in the hospital. But in the ICU, they kind of, like, let it slide because it's always freaking cold there. It's always cold because, like, everybody's always got a fever, so we have to keep the ICU really cold. Thank God for the blanket warmer though, because you know, in the middle of the night, when you're absolutely freezing and all your patients have fevers, so like the whole hallway's cold, you just grab a warm blanket and you like wrap yourself up for a few minutes and you're warmed right up. Anyways, but what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so dress code. So when I was in nursing school, it was like you had a single wrinkle in your scrubs, and it was like it was the end of the freaking world. And if you didn't have white shoes, it was the end of the world. And if you didn't have every single strand of hair up, it was the end of the world. And like you would get kicked out of freaking clinical and crap. It was stupid. In real life, guys, like, you still should, I mean, like, you should have your hair up because it's gross to have your hair down, and I have really long hair, so, like, it would get into, like, everything, and you don't want it to get into everything. So, like, having your hair up is a good idea, but it's, like, you know, if you have your hair, like, in, like, a half bun or something like that, like, it's not a big deal. Wrinkles in your scrubs, I'm pretty sure it's more of like a personal preference now. Like, you know, you want to look nice, and I guess that's what you wear every day, so you want it to be clean and wrinkle free and everything, but it's not like, you know, you're gonna get like kicked out of work if you have wrinkly scrubs. Nails, I get my nails done every 2 weeks because I'm real high maintenance. They've never said a single thing to me about my nails being too long, too colorful, too whatever. What else? I've seen nurses with, like, colors in their hair, with, like, I don't know, headscarves, like, anything. They don't care. They don't care about that. As long as you're doing your job. And also, I have a nose piercing, and they've never said anything about that either. You know, during nursing school, it was like you can have a single ear, like a single ear piercing in each ear or something like that, and like nothing more. And like that was, you know, the end of the world if you had more than that. But I have a nose piercing and several ear piercings, and no, literally not a single soul has ever said anything about it to me. Knock on wood, because now I'm gonna have like a crazy new manager come talk to me. Anyways, so that's something very different from nursing school, because, you know, nursing school is just crazy. I know that in nursing school, a lot of the time they're like, you have to have like a white watch with a second hand on it, which is a little ridiculous. So I have an Apple Watch that I wear every day, because, again, high maintenance. But also, like, I like having it because then I can set timers on it if I need to, and I can see my texts if I, like, you know, if there's like an emergency, or if like I just want to see my text, because my boyfriend Snapchats me pictures of my dog all the time, so I have to look at that. But it's always nice to have that. But then I also wear like a small, not analog, oh my god, the watch with the hands on it. And I know it's not analog, it's the other name for it, but oh my god, why can't I think of... Anyways, I'm losing it. But like a watch with like a second hand on it, so that like when I'm like counting respirations or counting heartbeats, or like if I end up being like timekeeper during like code or something like that, I always have like a second hand to refer to. And I actually just recently started that because I realized I was in a code and I ended up being a timekeeper, and I hate that job, guys, because usually the timekeeper becomes the recorder during a code, and I just absolutely detest recording because, like, so much is going on, you can never pay attention. Maybe I'll talk about, well, sometimes, how long have we been talking? Maybe I'll talk about codes, too. We're 45 minutes in. Alright, we'll see. I have a couple more things to talk about. But yeah, I was in a code and I became the timekeeper, and I just like didn't have a watch to keep the time on, so I ended up having to like take out my phone, which is fine. Like, it's whatever. A lot of the doctors use their phones during a code because they have like code scenario apps on their phone that like helps them keep track of what they're doing. But we were in a contact room and the patient had like C. diff, so I like had my phone out in like a C. diff room, and then I just needed to like completely cleanse it afterwards. So yeah, so that's why I started wearing the other watch, because it just made it easier to have a second hand on it. So yeah, that's kind of just like a few differences between like school and real life nursing. Not to discredit nursing school, because nursing school, knowledge wise prepared me pretty well for what to encounter in the nursing field. I think too, during nursing school, everyone should be a CNA at some point. Like, it gives you such an understanding of just going in and like talking to patients and like touching patients and moving patients and cleaning stuff up. It gives you such an appreciation, and it gives you like such an appreciation for what CNAs do, and like, all the poop that everybody has to wipe. But yeah, if you're in nursing school, become a CNA at some point, because it will help you so much. It will help you so much more. Yeah. So yeah, those are the other things. So, I guess I'll talk about codes a little bit. Codes are interesting. So there are several different things that can happen. So I'll start with when I was on the floor. You could have rapid responses, or you could have codes. And in my hospital, we use plain language for rapid responses. And so, a lot of the time in like medical dramas, you'll hear like, oh, code blue, code red, code purple, blah, 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 like rung overhead. And code blue is always the bad one. That's like someone's like cardiac arresting, somebody needs to be intubated, like something crazy like that. So in our hospital, we use plain language. So if it's something that's not someone is crashing, but they're not like actively dying, I guess, it's a rapid response, and that's to get the proper people there in case it turns into something bigger. And obviously the patient is like decompensating, so you want to get people there just in case they need to be transferred to like a higher level of care or something like that. So if it's a rapid response, we have like they'll call overhead like medical response, rapid response. We have stroke team stat. We have respiratory. Medical response, rapid response. I think they say respiratory team or something like that. And then there's medical team, cardiology team, stuff like that. So they'll call rapid responses. They'll call the appropriate people to the bedside. Like if it's someone who's having... is that another freaking plane? Good lord. If someone's having like a crazy heart rhythm but they're like still awake or something like that, we'll call like medical response, rapid response, cardiology team, respond to this floor, room, whatever. And the cardiology team will come there, they'll assess, they'll figure out what's going on. During a rapid response, you still need, like, you get the crash cart with like all the meds and everything like that, you get the intubation kit, you get everything ready for something to go wrong, so that if it does go wrong, everything's like right there and you don't have to go scrambling for everything. So that's kind of the lesser of the medical emergencies that we get. And then there is a cardiac alert, which is like the big one, like that's a code blue right then and there. So you'll hear You'll hear medical response, rapid response, cardiac alert, floor this. So they won't say the room. I don't know why they won't say the room. That's actually something to ask one of the educators. I'll figure that out. I'll get back to you. So they call a cardiac alert, and that's like when like the code team comes, and like the code team is, you know, that you get like you get residents of the rapid response team, but you get like people from the cardiac ICU. They come. You get a Lucas, which is like an automatic chest compressor machine, which is like the coolest freaking thing ever. It's terrifying, but it's really cool. And you strap it on, and it does compressions for you, and they're more uniform. They're like exactly how compressions are supposed to be. When you have the Lucas on, you don't have to stop compressions to shock someone. You can keep compressing while you're giving a shock through the AED, which is that's awesome, because science shows that early shocking and good compressions, good solid uniform compressions are like, increase the odds of someone making it through a code. There are always like 1.5 million people in the room during a code, which, is a blessing and a curse, because you have all these people in a code and it drives you absolutely crazy, because it's like there are too many people in there. But then again, you have a ton of people to like go in and out of, doing compressions. If you don't have Lucas, excuse me. You also get something called an iStat, which you can do like immediate blood work to see if something is going wrong with their blood work, which is kind of cool. So there's always a couple nurses like at the bedside. There's a bunch of people rotating through giving compressions. There's always a nurse or two at the med cart, which is like where you pull up all your like epinephrine, your adenosine, your amiodarone, like all this stuff. And then you have a recorder nurse, and a lot of the time the recorder nurse is the person who keeps track of time. So every 2 minutes you have to do a pulse check. So if they're in the middle of like giving compressions, they have to take their hands off the patient every 2 minutes. We have to check a pulse. We have to let the AED, the Zoll, read their heart rhythm to see if they can get a shock. And like that's always the worst one, because like you have to be, first of all, paying attention to everything that the doctors are saying, because you have to record basically everything they do and say, because legally that recorder sheet is like what happened in that room. So like you are responsible for like everything that is said and done in that room, which is like literally so stressful. And then at the same time that you're doing that, you're paying attention to the time and making sure that like exactly every 2 minutes you're doing a pulse check. And like, it doesn't sound hard, but like at the same time, like doing both of those things at the same time is so stressful. And honestly, like compared to doing like compressions or meds or something, honestly, I feel like recording is like the hardest job. 'Cause the meds never change, like you're drawing up the same exact med. I mean, not always. Sometimes they change, because sometimes they have, sometimes we'll have the pre-drawn up epinephrine syringes. So you basically just like take them out and like put them together and it's already pre-drawn. Sometimes you have to actually draw the epi like out of a vial or something like that. So sometimes they change, but for the most part, it's like a very regular thing. But yeah, recording is like the hardest job. Mentally, physically, definitely compressions, obviously, because you're like pumping someone's chest. And if people say they have cracked somebody's sternum, like that's a freaking lie, because what they're cracking is the cartilage that connects their sternum to their ribs, which is a lot more pliable, a lot more easily breakable and everything. But, yeah, so you have to exert like a ton of force to actually break someone's sternum. Um, anyways, uh, so yeah, that's kind of my long and short about codes. So the last like kind of topic I have is like the weirdest slash grossest thing I've ever seen, because I feel like I haven't really talked about anything like super gross. Um, so so like the one that I was thinking of is actually like pretty recent. It was a really sad story. It was this homeless guy, and he got run over by a car, and he comes in, and like obviously it was run over by a car, which is like a total issue, but he also just like had a lot of health issues, and so like we brought him in. We didn't have like any family, like nothing to contact. He didn't have like a conservator, which is someone like appointed by the state to make decisions for you. He didn't have anyone to make decisions for him, and he was basically like dying, even though we were trying to do everything we could to keep him alive. And to get a conservator to make decisions about people takes probably like a month of like court proceedings. And the issue with someone not having like a healthcare proxy or conservator or family or anything to make decisions for you is we are under like emergency protocol, which means that we do everything. We do everything to save you, because it's like an emergency situation and we're legally obligated to do everything we can to save you. So, yeah, this guy basically, we were giving him pressage, we give him this, we give him that, he was on the vent, he was tubed, everything, and nothing was working. He was not getting any better. And basically we got to the point where we're like, all right, we're going to leave him on the medication, the vent settings, everything that he's on now, and we're not going to progress his care, and if he codes, we're not going to do a full code thing on him. And we're just basically going to medicate him and hopefully get him a little bit better. Well, not get him a little bit better, but get him to the point where he's comfortable, and we're going to let him pass. And so we had like the nice music channel going, and I was sitting in there with him because no one, this sounds really sad, but no one should die alone. And all of a sudden I look up, and he is like pouring blood out of his mouth, his nose, his ears. Blood is pouring out of everything. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? I go on there, so like I'm trying to like clean him up. It just keeps pouring out. So I stick a suction thing like into his mouth, and I swear to God, he had like, I think it was close to like a liter of blood that like got sucked out of his mouth within like 10 minutes of me putting that thing in him. And I was like, holy crap. So we're thinking that like he had esophageal varices, which we knew. And we're thinking that one of them just like must have ruptured or something like that. Like he got so weak that it just like the wall of it like ruptured and he started bleeding. And it just was pouring out of him. But I just remember like it was so terrifying, like looking up and just seeing blood pouring out of like every orifice he had. It was terrifying. And that's probably like the craziest thing that I've seen, and it was pretty recent too. But anyway, but he passed away. Rest in peace, sir. Yeah, so that's that. And then like one last little thing. If anyone is up in the Northeast, just one thing that I like doing, like in my spare time is there's this camp called Camp Sunshine, and it's in Casco, Maine, and it's camp for children with like dangerous diseases. Hang on, let me bring up their website here. Sorry guys, I probably should have prepared this a little better. So let me read what they... So Camp Sunshine provides retreats combining respite, recreation, and support while enabling hope and promoting joy for children with life-threatening illnesses and their families through the various stages of a child's illness. Camp Sunshine's program is offered year-round and has the distinction of having been designed to serve the entire family in a retreat model. The program is free of charge to families and includes on-site medical and physiological support. Oh no, psychosocial support. Sorry, I can't read. Bereavement sessions are also offered for families who have experienced the death of a child from a supported illness. So basically, it's this whole camp created so that like an entire family of people like with a child who's sick, who has like, you know, we have cancer, brain tumor, sickle cell, and like any of those types of diseases, they can come be in like a safe environment and like do camp related things and, you know, basically like get to be a kid for a little while, because a lot of these kids like can't go to normal camp. And, you know, and a lot of the families won't let them go to normal camp because they're like, we're not going to leave our kid to, like, be in someone's hands. So, like, it allows the whole family to go together. And it is a little retreaty, but where, like, but the kids, like, go off and do their own thing all day. The parents, they make it fun for the parents because the parents need a break, you know, like, they need to relax a little bit. And, so I kind of just wanted to mention that, I actually just, I've been a few times and I just signed up for another session at the end of August, and I just was thinking about it and hoping that maybe if someone listens, you know, if I inspire at least one person to go, you know, then it's worth it to me, because if you go as a volunteer, you get to hang out with kiddos and they're great, and, you know, like they don't even... during that week of their time, like they don't even think they're sick, and it's wonderful, and it makes you very much appreciate your life and help give these kids, you know, some fun, and it's nice. So if you want to look them up, their website is campsunshine.org, or you can just Google Camp Sunshine. They're always looking for volunteers, or even if you just want to like donate money to them, then that's great too. Like I said, they're like an amazing camp, and they do great stuff. So I just kind of wanted to, since I don't really have anybody to like hashtag plug or whatever YouTuber people say, I just wanted to mention that. And I'll probably, when I go in a couple weeks, I'll probably talk about my experience on the podcast, and I don't know, I might cry. I will leave you guys with, I've never cried at work, also knock on wood, because I'm just waiting for that to actually happen. But I've never cried at work, so I'm gonna hope that I can keep that going for like the rest of my life. Just be a heartless person. Anyways, so yeah, that's my podcast for tonight. I think that went a little longer than I was expecting. But you know me, you know, just talking away. So yeah, I hope I get 18 more listeners. That would be really cool. So you guys have a wonderful rest of your night. I'm gonna go to bed in a few hours, and then I'm gonna go to work tonight. I probably won't do another podcast until later in the week. But yeah, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, you can email me at nightnursepod@gmail.com. And all one word, no uppercases. Yeah. And that's it. I'm totally zoned out right now. I'm gonna probably go try and find something else to do so I don't fall asleep before I need to. Yeah. So you guys have a wonderful night. Stay nursey, my friends. We'll see you next time. Bye.